Welcome. Today we will be playing against the strongest chess engine in the world, Stockfish. However, my pieces will be starting on the 4th and 5th ranks, which will give me a massive advantage. My strategy is to keep the position as closed as possible to prevent Stockfish from developing its pieces and becoming active. Let's see how I do. Starting off with game 1, the only sensible moves in the position are pawn moves because any other move would either be me moving backwards or my knight being taken. So I'm going to start with e6, try to disrupt the center, going to trade some pawns off initially, and Stockfish then plays f5, which is interesting. I have to take because otherwise Stockfish just wins my knight. But Stockfish had a tactic there actually because the pawn on the d5 square is pinned to the queen. So I can't take, and I can't take with my king because I think I'm just going to get checkmated. Anyways, Stockfish trades the bishop for the knight, and I don't like how exposed my king is, so I'm going to try to move it back a little bit. And now Stockfish strikes in the center with e5, and again, I have to take these pawns because otherwise Stockfish is just winning one of my pieces. And I'm doing the exact opposite of my strategy at this point because the position is becoming wide open and Stockfish with another nice tactic, deflecting my queen. So I have to move back but maintain defense of e5. And now Stockfish is just loading up on that e5 square, so I need to defend it. But oh my gosh, like every piece is just coming in, sacrificing the knight. And I guess I'll take, but my bishop on e5 is falling because it's pinned. And I'm just not sure what to do here, but I think I need to maybe go for the b7 square, get my pawns active, and then Stockfish immediately says no to that. My only other piece that I can really get into the game is the rook. Okay, Stockfish going again for a fork. I have to take. Stockfish keeps forking me, but then it's like if I don't take, I give up a piece. Okay, now another fork. I think I've gotten forked like 5 times this game already. So this is an interesting game, and my king is exposed. So I need to find something to make it safe, but this is going to be difficult. I'll try my best. Moving the king into the corner, the rook is coming, and it's going to be checkmate within a move or two. I don't even see how to defend this. I think we may be moving on to game 2. Yeah, this is just checkmate. On to game 2. Okay, so this game, I'm going to switch up the strategy a little bit by moving the d-pawn rather than the e-pawn because the d-pawn is supported by so many different pieces that the captures aren't as concerning. Stockfish plays c6. I think I want to keep the position closed, so probably avoiding captures is in my best interest. But if I play b5, that's probably going to be taken. But I can just take with the c-pawn rather than the a-pawn, as if I take with the a-pawn, I lose my rook. So I'm going to take with the c-pawn, and things are still closed, so we're looking good. Stockfish plays e6, and again, keep the position closed. That is the best strategy here, because if the pieces get active, I am in trouble. That just seems like a free pawn, so I think I can take. When you're playing Stockfish, though, you always have to double check in case there is some sort of tactic going on. But yeah, that is just a free pawn, so not sure even why that was played. And once again, Stockfish going for a trade. I could take because he's forced to take with the f-pawn rather than the h-pawn, but I think it's still best just to play h6. Keep the position closed, stay with the strategy. And now Stockfish is offering a trade. The question is knight or bishop for the trade. I think that bishop may be slightly better because if I get my knight to c7, that is going to be very good for me. So I'm going to take with bishop and try to get my knight to c7, but there isn't a good way to get it there because I can't take on a6. I can't go to b5 or d5 to get my knight there. So instead, I'm going to start developing my pieces. I also have to be worried about bishop b7. Checking the king, but I'm going to move my knight around, and now I need to get my king off that diagonal. I am worried about rook c8 too. This is actually opening up a lot more than I wanted it to, but I just need to get my pieces more active because the right side of the board is totally locked down. I just need to get my pieces now to the left side so I can combat Stockfish's pieces. I'm even debating queen c7 there because then I just have a pawn right there ready to promote, but I don't think that's the best idea. I think I just need to get all my pieces onto the left side of the board. But now Stockfish is activating the rook. That is concerning. I want to trade some pieces off though, because if I can get some trades, the pieces on the right-hand side of the board on f8, g8, and h8, they are not in the game whatsoever. So if I get these trades, I can put myself in a good position to win. So again, going for the trades, I think after queen takes, I maybe just play queen c4 and go for the trade again. But then we have to be careful about the queen maybe going to f2, but the knight covers. So I think queen c4 is a good idea. Realistically, the bishop on b7 and the queen on c2 are the only pieces that Stockfish has that are active. So if I can just trade off one or two of them, then I'm going to be in a really good position, which is why I like the queen c7 idea. But then I'm giving up my rook, actually. So I need to move the rook first before that happens. There is an interesting line here where I sacrifice the rook, but I think it doesn't work because after the check, the queen can drop back to c6, which covers the back rank. So I know everyone wants to see me sacrifice the rook, but it's just not going to work this time. So let's just stay calm, bring the rook back. I think getting the rook to c2 could be interesting. And Stockfish seems a little desperate, sacrificing the knight there, trying to get pieces into the game because I think I can just take there. And I'm not too worried about that side of the board because my bishop on f4 is doing a really nice job of defending everything. I do have to be careful of the queen now. And I actually totally forgot about castling. Yeah, Stockfish can castle here, which brings the rook into the game. And actually, that is an excellent move. An excellent plan by Stockfish there. Get rid of the pieces by sacrificing to then castle and get your rook into the game. And I am a little bit worried about this position. One drawback of having your pieces start on the 4th and 5th rank is that your king is not very safe if black breaks through. And just as I say that, black is threatening queen e4, which is really bad news for me because then my king is forced to the c file, which could potentially mean I am getting pinned and I lose my queen. So I need to think of an idea here. I can't really defend the e4 square, so maybe I just bring my rook to c2 and accept the pin, but actually I'd say just get my queen off of the c file and then that pin is no longer there. Okay, so Stockfish is threatening to take on d3, so I need to defend that with rook a3. And now Stockfish plays bishop d3, so I have to take with my rook. Stockfish is basically doing a trade there because now it can take on f4. And this seems like a fairly even position. I think my next move is try to get my king to c6 and b7 to get some more king safety. And of course, Stockfish stops that right away. Stockfish then proceeded to harass my king for the next 3 minutes and 15 seconds until it found checkmate. I'm just speeding ahead here because the end of the game was not very interesting. On to game 3. Okay, on to the next game. I still think pawn d6 is my best move because it's just defended so well and it helps me keep the position closed. So Stockfish playing e6, and again, we know the strategy by now. Move f6 and keep the position as close as possible because if Stockfish gets behind us, we're in trouble. Okay, Stockfish plays b6, and I think I have to take because then probably the c pawn takes, and maybe I can play c6 and start causing some trouble because Stockfish is so congested. So I'm going to take that pawn. The a pawn can't take because the rook is pinned. And wait, what? I guess it can take. Oh, because after takes, there's bishop b7, checking the king, so then it can take the rook. Oh my gosh, that is so clever. So what's the best move here? I think just trading, honestly, is a good plan. Obviously, we know bishop b7 is coming. Oh, okay. First, take the pawn to get a tempo on my queen. Stockfish is just playing a masterful game right now. But I think we should expect bishop b7 now. Okay, yeah, we see it. And now I need to move my king. I could move my king to e3, but then that would block in my bishop on f4. So instead, I think I want to move my king to d3. In the previous games, I've struggled to get my f4, g4, and h4 pieces into the game. Okay, so now can I take there? Because it does give up my queen, but then I can take Stockfish's queen. So I could maybe take on c7, but I don't know if that's the best plan. Instead, I think I need a different plan. So let's move the knight to a6, because if the knight captures c7, then I actually win Stockfish's queen. So now we trade knights, and now we can get that pawn moving to potentially promote. But I need to get my other pieces into the game, specifically the pieces on the right-hand side of the board. Stockfish then takes. This is a little nerve-wracking because the position is starting to open up, but I don't think I have too much to worry about because the left side of the board is really strong for me still. Now I would expect Stockfish to take on f6, and Stockfish's queen would get in the game. But instead, rook g8 is played. Not really sure what the idea is there. I think I can just play bishop g5 to defend my pawn and keep the position a little more closed. And Stockfish actually sacrifices the rook for my bishop, so that is interesting. I will have to see how to proceed here, though, because I want to keep the game more closed, but I can just tell Stockfish's queen is going to get into the game, and I need to figure out how to stop it or at least mitigate it. Centralizing my queen here is nice because now I can defend both the f pawn and the d pawn. And right, Stockfish starts bringing the queen into the game. This rook on h4 needs to get involved. Ideally, I bring that rook to the a file so then I can start pushing my a pawn and starting to cause some problems. So I think that I'm going to bring my rook down and maybe bring it over so then I can put some pressure on the a and b file. And wait, I just may have blundered there because now my rook is pinned, but I can maybe just play rook g2 because then I'm threatening checkmate. So I think, wait, never mind, because then bishop takes g2. So instead, I need to go rook b2, so then it would just be a queen trade and no big deal. Let's see if I calculated this correctly. Okay, nice. Stockfish did not take my queen, so my plan worked out just fine. But now I do need to move my queen, and I think moving it to the b file seems like the best plan because then I can go for a trade potentially, simplify the game, and then push my a pawn to victory. My a pawn is really my lifeline right now. I'm even considering playing queen b8 and trading the queen for the queen and the rook for the bishop, but the bishop on c6 is still stopping my pawn, so I'm not sure if that really works. So I need to come up with a better plan. And the better plan, I think, is to try to find a different way to trade off the queens without giving up my rook. Because, yeah, if I go to the 8th rank and do that trade, I think I'm in trouble. So let's just play queen b6, try to trade off the queens, and go from there. Stockfish then plays bishop e4. That's pretty clever because if I take the bishop, the queen becomes activated. I don't think I want to take the bishop, though, but I may be forced to. This is tough to say. Stockfish just keeps on coming up with all these great plans. And like anywhere I move my king, I feel like there's some sort of tactic to win a piece. So I need to be careful with my next move. Because yeah, if I move king e3, I'm in check. If I move king d2, does that work? I have a feeling that bishop is going to find a way to check me. So I'm just going to take the bishop and then maneuver my queen to d4. So then I'm safe and everything is defended. I think that's the best plan. Anyways, unfortunately, I do lose my pawn. I thought I had rook b6 to win the bishop, but actually the queen can just check, so I'm actually not winning the bishop. But now I'm threatening to take the bishop and then get back rank mate. And I'm just going to speed through the rest of the game because it wasn't all that interesting, and it actually eventually ended in a draw. So finally got a draw, but we need a win. So on to the final game. Let's see if we can get a win. Okay, final game. If I don't win this one, I'm giving up. I think that the pawn d6 move is still the best. I've had the most success with it, and it generally leads to more closed games. So I'm going to continue. Question is now, do I take with the C or the E pawn? I could go either way. I don't know if it really even matters which way I take, but I'm just going to take with the E pawn, maybe open up the king a bit to an attack. Stockfish plays B6. I can take maybe, but then again, we run into this tactic where the pawn takes and then we get the fork between the king and the rook. So I don't think I want to do that because that generally leads to a more active position. Other way I could do is take with the C pawn. I'm going to do that because then if Stockfish takes the B pawn, I can just play A6. Okay, Stockfish plays E6, and I'm going to keep the position closed again by playing F6. And now we get the bishop fianchettoed, and I want the king on d3. I've struggled to get my bishop, knight, and rook on the right side into the game, so I think staying away from those squares is good. And interestingly, Stockfish sacrifices the knight. Not really sure there because I think it's well defended, so I can just take the knight. And now going for g5, I don't really understand what Stockfish's plan is here because I can just take the pawn. I'm second guessing myself because Stockfish usually has a really good plan, but I don't see it, so I'm just going to keep playing. Stockfish then goes h6, so I need to retreat my bishop to f4. I'm going to put my bishop on e5 because it's a nice square to defend, and again, I wonder if Stockfish has reached the point where I am winning by so much that it's just trying to delay checkmate. That is something you do see when you have a big advantage against Stockfish. But I'm going to keep things stable, kick that bishop away, sacrificing the rook. This is looking excellent. Let's see if we can finally come out with a victory. So I'm going to take the rook, maybe bring the bishop in to b5. Stockfish tries to threaten my rook, but I can just take with my knight. Or maybe do I take the knight first? No, I think just take the bishop, get the trade, and now this pawn on a6 seems unstoppable. I don't see how Stockfish can stop it, but I do need to address the threat to my queen. So I'm going to move my queen to f4 because that gives nice defense of my bishop, and maybe I can go bishop c7, and everything is really well defended, and I think I can just keep pushing my pawn. It doesn't really seem like Stockfish is doing much to stop it. Or I could actually trade my bishop for the knight first. I actually really like that plan because then, rather than sacrificing my pawn, I can just get a queen, and if I do that, I'm winning the game. So if I take on c6, I'm worried about rook d5 coming, and I maybe lose my bishop. So that is concerning, and I do need to do a bit of calculation. So takes on c6, and then I can always bring my rook into d4 to protect my bishop. So it's not a big deal. This bishop also could even move to e7. So there are some options. I think taking is still the right move. I have this pawn on a6, and it's in a really powerful position, so I'm not too worried about it. Stockfish with a bit of an in-between move. So now I need to move my queen, But moving my queen to b4 I think is better for me because now I line up my queen with my bishop, and I think I need to prevent rook d5. So if I move my knight there, that is actually really strong. And if the pawn is getting pushed, I can always just check the king. So I'm really liking my position. Knight e3 seems like a really great move. Both attacks the rook and prevents the rook from going to d5. And again, if that pawn goes to c5, I can just check. Seems like I'm in a really good spot because even if the queen takes that pawn, I'm going to promote with check. So this is looking good. I think we have done it, but never get too confident against Stockfish because it will humble you real quick. Now the queen's just stuck on the a8 square. So I think I can just bring my pieces in and win the game. This is finally, I think we're going to do it. Don't get too overconfident though. Take your time, calculate it out. Don't make a blunder. So now Stockfish brings the king to d7. I think I'm going to take on b6 because if Stockfish takes the bishop, the king is just so exposed that I'm surely going to get checkmate. And again, Stockfish seems to be sacrificing pieces to delay checkmate because I'm winning by so much. This is a formality. I just take the queen, and now I think I can comfortably say I'm winning this game. But of course, we don't want any stalemates. So we do need to be cognizant of that. But I'll just keep checking the king. This should be checkmate soon. This is not great technique by me. I'm literally just keeping to check the king and I'll get checkmate soon. And there we have it. Finally, got checkmate. Beat the challenge. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe. It goes a long way. And I'll see you in the next one.